of the year. But we'll move on. Patriots, a lot of what they did is either lateral or a slight step forward in one spot, big step back in another. Like, you're not really replacing J.C. Jackson with Malcolm Butler. That's just not happening. All right. And now we're going to move on to the New Orleans Saints. And then after the Saints, we're going to take a quick break. And then we should be able to finish, I think, in a reasonable amount of time. So, Saints, actually, we could do the Saints and the Giants if we get through them quick. Saints re-signed Jameis Winston, 2 years, $28 million. They signed former 49ers defensive lineman Kentavious Street and former Jets safety Marcus May to 3 years, $28.5 million. All smart moves. Although now the Saints just brought in Andy Dalton, so who knows? Who knows how that's going to go?
Yeah, another team in cap hell, doing what they can to, recover from the retirement of Breeze and, try and get this team back to some semblance of being competitive. They're obviously hoping that Jameis Winston's success last season wasn't a fluke. Decent moves, not a lot you can do. So for their limited money, I think it's actually a pretty solid couple of moves versus other teams and their free agencies. It looks terrible, but when you're fighting with one hand tied behind your back, you're only ever going to be able to hit with one hand.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I mean, when you're handcuffed by money, there's only so much you can do, so you do what you can.
All right. And now we're going to move on to the Giants real quick. We got like 4 minutes. Former Texans quarterback, Tyrod Taylor. Former Bills running back Matt Breida. Replacing Evan Ingram with tight end Ricky Seals-Jones. They're trying to build up the offensive line with tackle Corey Cunningham, guard Mark Lewinsky, and two offensive linemen, John Feliciano and Jamil Douglas. Defensive tackle Justin Ellis, defensive end Jihad Ward, and cornerback Jaron Williams. And I just didn't scroll enough. There's also long snapper Casey Kreider.
Oh, don't you forget about those long snappers, baby.
Yeah, not a lot of surprise here. Obviously, bringing in 4 offensive linemen, they really want to get Daniel Jones the help he needs.
Well, you need to get him protection. And again, this is almost the same kind of situation as New Orleans was in. Like, you're handcuffed with a lot of money issues, and you got to grab what you can get. And 2 priorities without question were the defensive line and the offensive lines on both sides. Yeah, the secondary definitely needs some help now that people have left. I don't mind the Ricky Seals-Jones. I don't feel like that's really trading for anything different. It's just kind of swapping pieces. But again, they're making an emphasis on trying to make the offensive and defensive lines a competitive room to figure out who actually wants to step up and do their job, which is something different from the past.
Yeah. Yep. It makes sense. I like what they're doing. They brought in Matt Breida to be a backup running back, which they desperately need a quality backup running back.
Veteran guy's not going to be anything too crazy, but is definitely there in case you need him, which seems to have been the case a lot recently.
All right, Dan O'Shea, last word before we go to break.
They did a lot last season and did not have the money to do much this season, but you got a whole new head coach, GM. It looks like they're basically trying to retool a little bit and see what they have, and this to me resembles the Jets from like a year or two ago when we just got Joe Douglas, and he was dealing with the shittiness of Adam Gase and the shittiness of the roster that Maccagnan had failed to put together, and didn't go out and make huge splashes, but just kind of retooled and tried to play it smart. So this could be a good thing. I don't think it's going to mean any crazy improvement on the Giants this season, but sometimes short-term sacrifice for long-term success.
Yeah, there's a lot to fix.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And with that, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about another team that needs a lot to fix, and that's the New York Jets. You're listening to Dan D'Antoni Sports. And we are back from our little break. As promised, we are going to start right up with the New York Jets. And I'm sure Dan O'Shea is super excited to be talking about this just absolute powerhouse of an NFL team.
That's right. Give them the respect. So far, I'm liking what the Jets have done in free agency, and all signs point to that they're not quite done, and that it might not be a free agency sign, it might be a trade or a sign and trade. But so far, obviously upgraded the offensive line with Laken Tomlinson. Got our tight end issues solved very well with Uzoma rather, and Tyler Conklin. Re-signed Braxton Berrios, and then also got some much-needed defensive help for Saleh to utilize with DJ Reed and Jordan Whitehead. None of these are so far are things that you'd write home about specifically, but they're all solid pieces that really bolster the Jets in a variety of places, because we had a roster that was devoid of talent in the secondary. So DJ Reed and Jordan Whitehead should help significantly with that. Whitehead was very, very good last year, both in playing more of a strong safety position, which is what he's best at, but he was also playing coverage very well and had a decent amount of pass breakups and a couple of picks in coverage. So looking like he can be utilized wherever we need him, which is huge for Saleh. And it's looking like the Jets are trying to trade for a high caliber wide receiver. They, were very much in on the Hill trade, but unfortunately Hill's, from Miami and has a house there and stuff. So ended up choosing them. But
he said there wasn't even a question it was going to be Miami.
Yeah, he's from there. It sounded really bad when you just read the text, but I actually watched his interview, and it didn't really sound nearly that bad. You know, he wasn't like, oh fuck the Jets. It was just like no, he's like, this is my home. Like I was always coming here, which, you know, I understand. I don't like it because it's Miami, but I understand. So the Jets are also apparently in the mix for A.J. Brown, because it's looking like Tennessee's not going to have the money to re-sign him, or even Deebo Samuel or DK Metcalf, if any of them become available through stalling extension talks with their teams. So
yeah, there's a lot of quality wide receivers. You could have had Amari Cooper for cheap. You know, maybe if you guys had offered like a 4th round pick, could have had Amari.
Yeah, who knew he'd go for a 6th? I thought he'd be much more expensive than that. To be honest, I was initially out on him because I was like, I don't want to pay, you know, a bunch of picks for him when there's these other guys that you could trade for that I think would be essentially better. Little did I know that it would cost a bag of freaking peanuts to trade for him.
We'll swap 6 and give us a 5th, and you got him.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that was a bit shocking. I don't think the entire rest of the league was ready for that, to be honest. I can't imagine other teams didn't offer more than that.
He goes from a mid 1st round pick value 2 years ago to a 5th round pick this year. That's insane. Anyways, you missed some key signings. Just in case this Zach Wilson guy doesn't work out, you got your choice between Joe Flacco and Mike White. So you got options.
Oh, yes. Yes, don't forget, we've got the GOAT.
Running back Tevin Coleman. Wide receiver Braxton Berrios, which you mentioned. The 2 tight ends, both very good, C.J. Uzomah and Tyler Conklin. You mentioned Laken Tomlinson. You failed to mention Dan Feeney. And you said, and this is where I'm going to disagree with you quite a bit, you said they haven't done anything really to really write home about. Look at that offensive line that they're building. With Mekhi Becton, with Laken Tomlinson, with Elijah Vera Tucker.
But that's not this offseason. You know, most of that's already in place. So adding to it is definitely huge, and it feels like we have potentially a top 5 offensive line if they gel, which is amazing for a young quarterback.
For any quarterback.
That's what you want if you've got a new quarterback. Yeah, but especially a new one.
Mm-hmm. And plus, like we said, tight end is the quarterback's best friend, and now they've got 2, at the very worst way to describe them, is they got 2 solid tight ends. And that's the worst possible way to describe Uzomah and Conklin. Solid. That's the bottom.
Uzomah, I'm surprised that Cincinnati let Uzomah go for that deal. That's a hell of a deal by New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he'd be more expensive. I definitely put a lot of stock into the tight end position as well, especially for a young quarterback. So I was very happy to not only get one, huge upgrade, but a second huge upgrade of what we had, because our tight ends were god awful. So this is, so that was, great for, just building around Zach, giving him the tools to succeed, and yeah, they're just trying to. I think we cleared a lot of money off of the books for a loaded deal, upfront deal for like a wide receiver or someone else, big money. So I think that's still in the pipeline, and I want Zach Wilson to have no excuses. All the weapons, the offensive line. So, and it looks like they, that Joe Douglas wants that as well. So I'm pretty excited and loving this offseason so far, and hoping that we do add that one last piece.
Yeah, they finally have good tight end play. Brings you back to the thoughts of Austin Seferian-Jenkins, right?
I mean, yeah, as long as he doesn't, drop it in the end zone or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. And they also added guard Dan Feeney. Now, this next section is where they didn't help Zach Wilson, and I'll explain in a second. Defensive tackle Nathan Shepard, linebacker Jacob Martin, corner DJ Reed, safety LaMarcus Joyner, safety Jordan Whitehead. he's not going to get time to rest because this defense is vastly improved. He's going to be off the field and then have to come right back on. So